My entire life, I knew the third floor of our Victorian house was off limits. Not just the don't make a mess kind, the do not go up there ever, not for any reason kind. The door at the top of the back staircase had a deadbolt on the outside. Dad said it was unstable, rotten floorboards, asbestos, black mold. They'd get it fixed someday. Someday never came in 23 years. I'm the youngest of 3 girls. Lily, 32, Rose, 29, and me, Ivy, 23. We're close, or so I thought. We grew up in this sprawling, creaky house with its one forbidden wing. We joke about ghosts, but there was a tension behind our parents' eyes whenever the subject came up. Everything changed when Rose got engaged. As a fun modern thing, we all did those ancestry DNA kits. Find out if we're secretly royalty. Lily joked. The results came back last month. Lily and Rose, 50% shared DNA with each other, sisters. Me, 25% shared DNA with Lily and Rose, half-sisters. The world tilted. I confronted my parents in their perfectly kept living room. The color drained from my mother's face. My father just looked old and tired and defeated. After an hour of crying and circular arguments, my mother whispered, "There's something you need to see." She led me to the forbidden door. Her hands shook as she turned the key in the deadbolt. It opened with a groan I felt in my bones. It wasn't a ruin. It was a bedroom. A perfectly preserved, clean, beautiful bedroom from the late 1990s, floral wallpaper, a canopy bed with a faded lavender duvet, shelves of books and CDs, Alanis Morissette, TLC, a desk with dried-out markers, and photographs, a girl with my exact same eyes, my same smile at various ages, 5, 10, maybe 15. The last photo showed her in a cap and gown, beaming. High school graduation. "This is Violet," my mother said, her voice cracking. "Your older sister." The story tumbled out in ragged pieces. Violet was their firstborn. Brilliant, artistic, but troubled. At 17, she was diagnosed with a severe, volatile dissociative disorder after a terrifying incident where she sleepwalked and nearly set the kitchen on fire, followed by a suicide attempt. Her doctors recommended a very specific, private residential treatment facility. Incredibly expensive, incredibly remote, with a strict, no-contact initial period. They sold everything they could to pay for it. A year in, the facility closed abruptly amid a scandal. The patients were scattered to state hospitals. My parents spent 2 years trying to find her. They failed. She just vanished from the system, my father said, tears tracking through his stubble. We hired PIs. Nothing. We were devastated, broke, guilty. A year later, they had Lily, then Rose. They moved into this big, cheap house haunted by the ghost of their lost daughter. They kept her room exactly as it was, locking it away, a tomb for a living girl. The forbidden attic was a story to keep us from asking questions they couldn't bear to answer. "And you?" I asked, my throat tight. "Where do I come in?" My mother couldn't look at me. 2 years after Violet disappeared, I had an affair, a stupid, grief-stricken mistake. You were the result. Your father, the man you've called Dad all these years, he forgave me. He raised you as his own. We never told anyone. We locked that secret away too, up here with Violet's. So the third floor wasn't haunted by a ghost. It was haunted by 2 secrets, my missing full sister, and the truth of my parentage. I took the graduation photo. I've been running facial recognition software through every social media platform, every missing person's database I can find. I've found nothing. It's like she was erased. But here's what's tearing me apart. Last night, I couldn't sleep. I went back up to Violet's room. I sat at her desk. In the very back of the bottom drawer, under old sketchbooks, I found a diary. The last entry, dated a week before her incident, reads, "Mom and Dad are so scared of me. Dr. Warren says I'm a danger. He says the new place will help, but I have to go away for a while." He showed me pictures. It looks like a prison. I heard them talking about money, about a special arrangement. I don't trust him. If anything happens to me, it's not my illness. It's them. Underneath that, scribbled in a desperate, shaky hand as if added later, "The doctor's name isn't Warren." My blood went cold. Dr. Warren was the psychiatrist my parents have always named. The one who recommended the facility. I don't think my sister vanished into a broken system. I think she was sold into one, and my parents, in their grief and shame, locked the door and threw away the key. Now I have to decide, do I rip my family apart to find a sister I never knew? Or do I keep their terrible secret locked away forever? I showed the diary entry to Lily and Rose. Rose, the pragmatist, immediately said, "A troubled teenager writing paranoid things. It doesn't mean anything." Lily, the protector, looked sick. "They locked a whole floor for 20 years. Ivy, they lied about you being dads. What else did they lie about?" I needed an ally with resources. I went to my biological father. Tracking him down was easier than I expected. My mother's old email from 1999 was still accessible on a forgotten laptop. His name is David. He's a quiet, kind-eyed history professor who never married. He knew about me. My mother had sent him a letter when I was born, with a picture telling him never to contact us. He respected her wish, he said, but kept the picture in his desk drawer for 23 years. He listened to my story without interruption, his face growing graver by the minute. When I showed him the diary entry, he said, "This Dr. Warren. Have you searched for him?" I had. Nothing. No psychiatrist by that name licensed in our state in the late 90s. David's research skills kicked in. Private, scandal-ridden facility that closed abruptly in the late 90s. He spent 3 hours buried in old newspaper archives. He found it. Havenwood Springs, a wellness retreat in upstate New York. It was shut down in 2001 after a patient died of neglect. The investigation uncovered forged credentials, insurance fraud, and allegations of patient trafficking. The director was a man named Arthur Finch. A photo accompanied one article, a bald man with small, cold eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. My blood turned to ice. I'd seen that face in a photo album in our basement. A picture from my parents' 15th wedding anniversary party. A man standing at the edge of the group smiling thinly. My mother had written on the back, "Celebrating with friends. Mark, Susan, and Arthur." Arthur Finch was at my parents' party. I confronted my parents with the photo and the article. The performance of grief collapsed. My father's shoulders slumped. My mother began to sob, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. "Tell me the truth, or I go to the police with what I have," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The truth was worse than I imagined. Violet wasn't just troubled. She was psychic. Not in a carnival trick way. She had episodes, fugue states, where she'd speak in voices, recite personal details about strangers, predict minor events with unsettling accuracy. It terrified them. My deeply religious, superstitious parents thought she was possessed. They went to their church. The pastor recommended a specialist, Arthur Finch. Finch presented himself as a psychiatrist who ran a sanctuary for gifted children. He said he could help Violet understand and control her abilities. It was all free, he said, a charitable endeavor. They were desperate. They signed papers. It was only later we realized what we'd done, my father whispered. The papers were guardianship transfers. We'd signed our daughter over to him. He told us the no-contact period was crucial for her therapy. Then he started asking for money. Small amounts at first, then more. We paid. We sold my father's watch, your mother's jewelry. We were in over our heads. A year later, Finch disappeared, and Havenwood Springs was shuttered. They realized they'd given their daughter to a con artist who preyed on desperate families of unusual children. "Why didn't you go to the police then?" I screamed. My mother's face was a mask of shame. Finch had connections. He implied he had dirt on my affair. He said if we made trouble, he'd destroy our family. And we were so ashamed. We'd failed her. We locked it all away. We had 2 more daughters to protect. They didn't sell her. But their fear and shame buried her just as deep. David, who had been listening silently, spoke up. Arthur Finch, he changed his name after Havenwood. I found a marriage certificate from 2003. He's now Arthur Lowe. He runs a spiritual consulting firm in Sedona, Arizona. He's alive. He's out there. And if he's alive, maybe Violet is too. I'm packing a bag for Arizona. Lily is coming with me. Rose says we're insane. My parents are begging us not to go, not to stir up the past. But the past isn't past. It's a locked door. And I have the key. Sedona is a place of stunning red rocks and deep, unsettling spirituality. Arthur Lowe's consulting firm, Ascendant Path, operates out of a beautiful adobe-style villa. We posed as a mother and daughter. Lily, at 32, can pull it off, seeking guidance for my gifts, citing vague intuition and dreams. Lowe, now in his late 60s, still has those cold eyes, though they're framed by a benign, grandfatherly smile. His office is full of crystals, incense, and framed certificates with impressive sounding but fake organizations. He listened to our fabricated story with a practiced, sympathetic air. "You have the spark," he said to me, his gaze lingering. "Untrained, dangerous, but with the right sanctuary, with the right guide." It was the same script, 25 years later. We played along. He invited us to a private retreat he runs in a remote canyon. For a donation of $15,000, he could begin my awakening. We said we needed to discuss finances. As we left, I used the restroom. On my way back, I saw a door slightly ajar, a records room. My heart hammered. I slipped in. It was a modern office, filing cabinets, a computer. On the wall was a photo of a group of young adults in white robes, smiling serenely. My breath caught. In the back row, a woman with familiar eyes stared back at me. Older than the graduation photo, but unmistakably Violet. The photo was dated 5 years ago. He hasn't lost her. He's kept her. As I turned to leave, I saw a planner open on the desk. Today's date had a note. Transfer V to the garden, 9 p.m. Use South Gate. Lily and I sat in our rental car shaking. We called David. He told us to call the police immediately. We did. The Sedona police were polite but skeptical. A spiritual retreat moving a member? Not a crime. You have a 25-year-old guardianship document? That's a civil matter, ma'am. We were out of time. It was 7 p.m. We decided to follow. We drove to the canyon address, miles down a dirt road. A high fence surrounded a compound. The south gate was a simple farm gate. We parked out of sight and hiked through the scrub to a ridge, overlooking the compound. At 8:55 p.m., a white van arrived. The gate opened. A woman was led out of the main building. Even from a distance, in the fading light, I knew her, Violet. Her hair was long, gray-streaked. She moved slowly, listlessly. 2 men in simple tunics helped her into the van. She didn't resist. The van drove away. We scrambled back to our car and followed at a distance, our headlights off. The van drove for an hour deep into the desert, before turning onto an unmarked road that led to a cluster of dark, low buildings, a different, more secure-looking facility. No signs, the garden. We couldn't follow further without being seen. We marked the coordinates. Back at the hotel, we formulated a desperate plan. The police wouldn't help without evidence of a current crime. We needed to get inside. Lily remembered a detail from the Ascendant Path website. They were seeking volunteers for a groundskeeping weekend at their main retreat. Offering spiritual exchange for labor, we signed up under false names. The groundskeeping was at the main villa. It was a way to get onto the property and search for clues about the garden. We spent the day raking gravel paths, watched by friendly but watchful guides. During a lunch break, I wandered towards a secluded meditation garden. And there she was. Violet was sitting on a stone bench, staring at a small fountain. She wore simple, clean clothes. She looked blank, peaceful but empty, like a doll. My legs carried me toward her before I could think. I sat on the far end of the bench. She didn't look at me. "Hi," I said softly. She turned her head slowly. Our eyes met. There was no recognition, just a polite, distant curiosity. "Hello." "It's a beautiful garden," I said, my throat tight. "It is," she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, but devoid of inflection. "The garden is peace. The garden is safety." My heart broke. Do you ever think about before? About family?" A flicker. Something deep behind her eyes, like a fish stirring in murky water. Then it was gone, smoothed over by practiced serenity. "The family is here. The path is my family. Arthur is my shepherd." "Violet," I whispered, the name feeling forbidden on my tongue. She blinked, just once. A long, slow blink. When her eyes opened, they were clearer, sharper. She leaned forward slightly, as if to adjust her sandal, and her voice dropped to a thread of sound only I could hear. "North wall. Lavender bush, hurry." Then she stood, smiled her empty smile, and walked away. My pulse roared in my ears. After my shift, I found the north wall. Behind a sprawling lavender bush, a loose stone hid a small waterproof pouch. Inside was a USB drive and a folded note in tiny, precise handwriting. The note: "If you are reading this, you are looking for me. I am not Violet anymore. I am Vessel 7. He breaks us and remakes us. He sells our visions to the highest bidder. The garden is a lab. Find Project Clarion on the drive. Tell the world. Then forget me. I am already gone." The USB drive? When we accessed it on a secure computer at the library. contained financial records, wire transfers from corporations, foreign entities, shell companies, dossiers on individuals with predictions about market shifts, political scandals, personal weaknesses, and a project log, Project Clarion. Test subjects Vessel 1, Vessel 2 up to Vessel 12 were administered a proprietary psychoactive regimen to enhance perceptual reach side. Effects listed: memory loss, dissociation, catatonia, organ failure. Vessel 4, deceased. Vessel 9, deceased. Violet, Vessel 7, was listed as high yield, stable, but requiring increased sedation. Arthur Finch Lowe wasn't just running a cult. He was running a psychic sweatshop, manufacturing intuition and selling it as corporate and political espionage. He was drugging my sister into a weapon and burning her out. We had our evidence. Lily wanted to run straight to the FBI, but I thought of Violet's empty eyes, her whispered warning. If we went to the authorities, Lowe would be tipped off. He'd vanish and he'd take his vessels deeper underground, or dispose of them. We needed to extract her first, now. David, on the phone, was frantic. It's too dangerous. You're not commandos. But we had one advantage Lowe didn't know about, a sister who looked just like his most valuable asset. The plan was insanity, born of desperation and sisterly intuition. We knew from the schedule on the USB that Vessel 7 had a weekly calibration session at the main villa every Thursday at 10 p.m., a private meeting with Arthur. The van would pick her up from the garden at 9:30 p.m. We staked out the pickup point the next Thursday. Right on time, the white van arrived. One guard on driver. Violet, sedate, was led out and helped into the back. This was our only window. As the van drove back toward the main road, we enacted the oldest trick in the book. Lily, driving our rental car, broke down right around a blind curve, hazards flashing. The white van slowed. I was already hiding in the scrub by the roadside, dressed in clothes similar to Violet's. As the van driver got out to offer help, I slipped to the back of the van. The doors were unlocked. Violet was inside, alone, her eyes half closed. "Ivy?" she whispered, a glimmer of the woman she was breaking through the chemical haze. "Yes, we're swapping places, now." We quickly switched our outer clothes. I gave her a quick, fierce hug. "Get in the car with Lily. Go, now." She moved with surprising speed, slipping out and into the passenger seat of our rental as Lily pretended to fiddle under the hood. I sat in her place in the van, pulling the hood of the simple tunic up, assuming her slumped posture. The driver returned, grumbling about city drivers, and got back in. He never looked back. I was taken to the main villa and led to Arthur Lowe's private study. He stood by a fireplace, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. "Vessel 7, he said without turning. "Report on the clarity of the London stream." I remained silent, head bowed. He turned and frowned. The drugs made his subjects docile, but they also apparently made them responsive. My silence was wrong. He stepped closer, tilting my chin up with a cold finger. Our eyes met. His narrowed. "You're not her." His voice was a deadly whisper. "The sister." From the consultation, there was no point in pretending. "Where is she, Arthur?" "Where is my sister?" He smiled, a cruel, thin line. "Safe, as she has been for decades. Cared for. You, however, have trespassed into a garden you cannot understand." He pressed a button on his desk. 2 large men entered. "Take her to the holding room. She has seen too much." They dragged me to a small, windowless room in the basement, clean, but a cell nonetheless. I was trapped. My plan had failed spectacularly. An hour passed. Then the door clicked open, not by a guard. Violet stood there holding a key. Her eyes were different, clear, sharp, blazing with a ferocity I'd never seen. The sedation had worn off, or she'd fought through it. "He underestimated the bond," she said, her voice strong. "He thinks his drugs can erase everything. He forgot about sisters." "Lily?" I asked. "Safe with David. They have the drive. They're sending it to every news outlet and federal agency as we speak. But we need to be gone before the storm hits." She led me through silent corridors. She knew this place intimately. Every turn, every camera blind spot. We were almost to a side exit when Arthur Lowe's voice echoed from a speaker system. "Vessels are not permitted to leave the garden. Vessel 7, you are unwell. Return to your keeper." Violet froze, a tremor running through her. The programming, the decades of conditioning, ran deep. "No," I said, gripping her hand. "You're not a vessel. You're Violet. You're my sister." She met my eyes, battling the voice in her head. Then she nodded, resolve hardening her features. The south gate. It's the only one not on the main grid. It has a manual release. We ran. We burst out the south gate into the cool desert night. David and Lily were there, engine running. We piled in and tore down the dirt road. Behind us, the first blue and red lights of police cars appeared in the distance, heading toward the compound. The storm had arrived. We didn't stop driving until we crossed the state line. That was a week ago. The story is exploding. Cult leader Ransack expiring is on every major network. Arthur Lowe Finch is in custody, facing a mountain of charges including kidnapping, fraud, and wrongful death. Federal agents raided the garden. They found 10 other vessels, now in protective medical care. Violet is in a specialized hospital undergoing detox and intensive therapy. The doctors say the damage from the long-term psychoactive drugs may be permanent in some ways. Her memory is Swiss cheese. She may never remember her childhood, our parents. But she remembers me. She calls me the key, the one who unlocked the door. My parents came to the hospital. The reunion was not a movie scene. It was raw, ugly, filled with 25 years of tears, accusations, and guilt. Violet looked at them with the detached curiosity of a stranger. There is no forgiveness there yet. Maybe there never will be. But they are trying. Lily, Rose, and I are navigating a new reality. We're not just 3 sisters anymore. We're 4. The family geometry has changed forever. Yesterday, I went back to the old Victorian house. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The door was wide open. The lavender room no longer feels like a tomb. The air is fresh. We're turning it into a proper guest room. I sat on Violet's old bed and looked at the graduation photo, now framed on the nightstand. The girl with my smile full of a future that was stolen. She's not that girl anymore. The drugs and the trauma took her. But someone else came back. Someone quieter, wiser, and fiercely protective of the sisters she never knew she had. The secret is out. The door is open. And for the first time in our family's history, no one is telling anyone to keep quiet.